You know, one of the great things about the Friday the 13th series is that, unlike Halloween, it's not really bound to a specific date in the year. So in that sense, I do not at all feel guilty about this review series continuing into November. And I'm still going to use this opening title. You know what? If people can start getting into the Christmas spirit the day after Halloween, or even before, then why not have Halloween bleed into a little bit of November? With that being said, hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel. This is my review for the 8th movie in the Friday the 13th series, Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, which is pretty much what the subtitle says it is. Well, at least you would think that. Let me give you a little background on my exposure to the Friday the 13th series, and specifically this movie. My gateway into more horror movies, like the Universal Monsters and slasher movies, was from Cinemassacre's Monster Madness. Every year I would always look forward to that series, and even though James Rolfe didn't review the Friday the 13th movies during Monster Madness, when he got to reviewing the series and he got to Jason Takes Manhattan, I was excited because I always imagined Jason Takes Manhattan to be one of the more famous movies in the series. I mean, it is, but back then I thought to myself, okay, it might not be a good movie, but at least it should be a fun movie, and I'm looking forward to his review. And then at the beginning of the review, when James Rolfe went, well, immediately in the back of my head, I thought, oh shit, this is going to be one of the worst ones, is it? And the more I've been exposed to horror movies, the more I've gotten used to the fact that this is really regarded as one of the worst of the series. And wow, yeah, I went into this movie expecting it to be bad, but I was not prepared for how bad it could possibly be. Like, this is a special kind of bad. I will say this first of all. I don't think it's as bad as The New Beginning. And I'll just get into the reasons why I don't think it's as bad as A New Beginning. It is terrible, don't get me wrong, but the main reason I think it's better, slightly better, than A New Beginning is that Jason Voorhees is actually the killer this time. Yeah, once again, just like the other movies, he gets resurrected back to life and starts killing people, this time on a boat and not actually Manhattan. And another good thing about this movie is that Jason is again played by Kane Hodder. This is the first time where one actor is coming back to play Jason Voorhees, and Kane Hodder, again, just has this cool presence. There's that moment where Jason Voorhees is standing in Times Square, and again, Kane Hodder can just look menacing by standing in place. That point of view shot from the final girl, Rennie, where she sees Jason behind them, he's just standing there and you're scared of him just by him standing there. There are some other positives that are worth talking about with this movie, but outside of what I just mentioned, and Jason being the killer in this movie, this is total dog shit. It is just truly awful. I mean, the obvious reason people hate this movie so much is that the subtitle, Jason Takes Manhattan, is such a lie. Because Jason spends most of the movie on a boat. He spends a full hour on a boat in a movie that's 1 hour and 40 minutes long. And he doesn't get to New York City until 1 hour and 4 minutes. So in no way, shape, or form does it live up to the film's subtitle. And the main reason that the movie doesn't take place in New York City for a majority of it is because of money. Because New York City is so expensive to shoot in, they could only film 2 days in New York City. Which, in that sense, I can kind of defend the movie, because the ever so reluctant Paramount didn't want to spend more than $5 million on this movie. But in this movie's not defense, maybe you want to write some scenes that actually take place in the daytime. And don't give me that excuse of, oh, it wouldn't be scary if it was in the daytime. We saw Jason Voorhees kill at daytime many times previous to this movie. So we're way beyond the point of him being scary in daytime. And in my opinion, Jason Voorhees has never been scary in the series, except for maybe a few moments. The rest of the movie was shot in Vancouver when they're actually in New York City, but even then, to spend 1 hour and 4 minutes on a boat is total bullshit. And I know that's the one thing that many fans criticize this movie for, but in my opinion, the fact that a majority of this movie takes place on a boat and not New York City is the least of this movie's problems. Because much like with the previous films, especially Part 5 and Part 7, the MPAA was really hands-on with this movie and butchered a lot of the movie's kills. Like, they are just weak, pathetic, they cut away before something cool's about to happen. And really, the only kill that's even worth talking about in this movie is when Jason uppercuts the athlete's head off. I mean, that whole scene's pretty cool because the actor who's playing the black athlete is just punching Jason Voorhees repeatedly, and Kane Hodder's actually absorbing those blows because Kane Hodder's awesome. And then the athlete goes, "Take your best shot, motherfucker." So Jason Voorhees grabs the athlete by the shoulder and then uppercuts his head off. Is there no blood? Yeah, there's no blood. Is the head fake? Undeniably it is fake. But the way it just rolls down the rooftop into the garbage bin, I'm like, I'll take it. All the other kills up to this point have been terrible. Even the kills afterwards have been terrible. And this is probably the most amusing part about the movie. Well, there's another amusing part. When Jason's walking, chasing our final girl and her boyfriend, and walks by a bunch of punks, and then kicks their stereo. That part I've always found funny. And that's all that's really good about the movie. Everything else, as I said before, is garbage. One of the things about this movie that is absolute garbage that made me pull my hair out of my head, metaphorically, was the fact that they tried to, once again, establish some sort of backstory or lore, which I hate to keep going back to this timeline since this series does not care about continuity at all, because theoretically, if the last movie did take place in the year 2000, Jason Takes Manhattan takes place in 2001. And no, I'm not going to make a joke about how it's 2001, but you can see the World Trade Center in the background. But if I want to address that in any way, they do indicate that our main characters are off on a senior boat trip to New York. So given that it would be the summer of 2001, it makes sense that the Twin Towers are there. But anyway, the movie theoretically takes place in 2001. At the beginning of the movie, we have a young couple who are on a boat, and the boyfriend's telling his girlfriend that Jason Voorhees drowned in Crystal Lake 30 years ago. Again, this is 2001. We've been told several times that Jason Voorhees has theoretically drowned in the 50s. And now with this scene in the movie, I'm like, so are you telling me that Jason Voorhees theoretically drowned in 1971? Just 8 years before the first Friday the 13th movie? And then the final girl of the movie, Rennie, keeps having hallucinations about the child version of Jason, who keeps changing form throughout the entire movie. One scene, he looks like a completely normal boy. Some other times, he looks slightly deformed, but still has black hair. Other times, he's totally bald and deformed. So they just can't make up their mind on which version of child Jason they want to use. But anyway, in her supposed backstory, she nearly drowns, and Jason as a little boy tries to drown her, which doesn't make sense because theoretically this takes place in a time where Jason Voorhees is chained to the bottom of Crystal Lake after Jason lives. So there is no way in hell that she could have an encounter with a child version of Jason when the adult zombie Jason is drowned at the bottom of Crystal Lake. And don't even get me started on the whole nonsense that Crystal Lake is now connected to the ocean. Do not even get me started on that nonsense right there. And the last clue, the last indicator that this movie does not care about continuity whatsoever, if it wasn't for all that I just laid out for you, in Times Square. Again, the movie's supposed to take place in 2001, but there is an ad for Tim Burton's Batman, which came out in 1989, the same year that this movie came out. So, whatever. Trying to understand the continuity and timeline of this franchise will break you if you are a sane person. But getting back to Rennie's hallucinations about child Jason, they are flat out hilarious. Outside of the fact that Jason keeps changing form, they just come out of nowhere. And just like with the previous movies, there are scenes that are intended to be horrific and traumatizing, but come across as hilarious. There's one moment in this movie in particular that made me howl with laughter. When Rennie steals a police car, she runs into Jason. They get away, but then they see Kid Jason who's standing right in front of them, and suddenly the movie is just cutting frames like they were just inserting screenshots into the movie. And then you'll get these hilarious zoom-ins of child Jason as the score does dun 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 dun, and then crash into a wall. Like, I laughed hysterically when that moment happened, which is another problem with the movie, is that it's unintentionally funny. Now, again, the Friday the 13th series at this point, thanks to Jason Lives, is a joke. Jason Lives knew the series was ridiculous, so it decided to have fun with it, but the New Blood, and especially this movie, Jason Takes Manhattan, aren't in on the joke. And the fact that this movie doesn't have a sense of humor about itself, and all the laughs come from the unintentional goofiness, is not good. It's not good at all. The ending is stupid. It is just flat out stupid. With Jason being melted away by toxic waste that floods into the New York sewers every night at midnight. God, I wonder how New Yorkers reacted when they saw that in theaters in 1989. Did they just laugh hysterically? I imagine it has to be just as hilarious as the way Los Angeles is depicted in Predator 2. But anyway, I say Jason gets melted by toxic waste, but what actually happens is that Rennie throws a barrel at him. Jason takes off the mask to reveal probably the dumbest look for Jason Voorhees. When you look at Jason Voorhees, you imagine somebody who is scary and he has a really cool look under the mask, like in The New Blood. But this look of Jason here is laughable. This is one little aspect about Jason Voorhees that's so bad, so laughably stupid, that even Kane Hodder can't save it. But anyway, the sewers flood with toxic waste. Jason gets annihilated by it. And again, I say he melts, but he actually gets set on fire and then transforms into a non-deformed child version of himself. And then our heroes leave the sewers, leaving little child Jason at the bottom of the sewers, and live happily ever after. Yeah, all of a sudden the ending to the last movie doesn't look that bad by comparison. I don't know what else there is to say about this movie. It is truly atrocious. It's got horrible kills. All the characters are flat-out stereotypes. Once again, you've got the blonde prom queen who's a total bitch. You have the black athlete. You have the nerd. You have the punk rocker. You have the final girl. You have the Asian stereotype who has a science scholarship. Like, wow, you can't get any more cliched than that. And the subtitle of the movie is just a flat-out lie. I'm actually this close to saying burn in hell, but the only reason I'm not going to say that is because this movie is flat-out hysterical. This movie is so unintentionally funny that I can't help but just laugh at it at times. And again, it's not like with Jason Lives, where that movie is in on the humor as well. This movie has no idea that it's unintentionally funny, and it's trying to be as serious as it can. And again, at this point, you can't do that with Friday the 13th, at least in this continuity. So I will be generous and say don't waste your money on it. I still think A New Beginning is far worse. I think that is a far worse movie, and probably the most offensive, just because it dupes the audience into thinking that Jason's the killer. But man, is this movie not far behind from Part 5 as the worst of the series. And there you go, that's my review for Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Next time, we're going to be talking about the 9th film in the series, and the first movie to be made in my lifetime, Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. But first, I want to know what you guys think about Jason Takes Manhattan. If you've seen it, what did you think? Do you consider this to be among the worst of the series? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, leave a comment, support my Patreon page, follow me on social media, and until then, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.